Grace and peace, everyone. Hopefully, you are having an amazing week thus far. It is Wednesday, and on Wednesdays, I always share a devotional of some sort for the people of Sandy Hook United Methodist Church and all of our friends, our brothers and sisters in Christ out there in the world, and anyone who really just wants to kind of have a conversation. So I'm Paul Dezay. I'm the pastor of Sandy Hook UMC here in Columbus, Indiana. It's good to be with you. So the last few weeks have been talking about a great book. It's called Centering Jesus by Derek Vreeland. And I would hold it up right now, so just pretend it's right there. Maybe I'll Photoshop that in. No, probably not. But I left it at home. It's such an amazing book. I've really enjoyed what Derek has to say about putting Jesus at the center of our lives in our church. And, I think that is a necessity in our world today of division. Divisiveness is we put Jesus at the center. We allow Jesus to unify us. And so in this book, Derek is talking about different facets of what it means to center Jesus. And last week we talked about the first section really of the book. It's about spiritual formation. And this week we're going to talk about Christian virtue, which is something that I love talking about. And I haven't really done very much talking about virtue here at Sandy Hook UMC, but today, let's dig into the idea of virtue. In our world today, so often we talk about the word productivity as a measure of what type of person we are. The more productive we are as a person, in other words, can we produce results? That is the measurement of a person. So the more productive, the more successful we are is someone who produces, whether it's content or money or popularity. Productivity as a measurement. Derek is challenging that point of view. When we put Jesus at the center, it's not productivity as the measurement of a Christian or a church or a person, really, for that matter. It should be virtue, and virtue is our character, our heart, who we are as a person. Are we a good person? Are we becoming a good person? Are we? Does the result of our heart full of love, does that produce love outwardly? And character matters. And we see the negativity that comes within our world, the negative examples that are lifted up in our world of people that are successful in the business world but have a really, really bad character. And unfortunately, in our world today, we lift up the successful person and not the person of character. We need to lift up character again, Christian virtue. And Derek, in this section of the book, talks about the three primary Christian virtues of faith, hope, and love that Paul talks about in 1 Corinthians 13. The greatest of these is love. But he spends 3 chapters talking about those 3 virtues that we need to develop. And the way we develop virtue is by practicing them. And the more that we practice them, they become second nature, and we kind of make these decisions out of a good heart and practice faith, hope, and love. And we actually make decisions of faith, hope, and love the more that we practice them. They just become so familiar to us, they become second nature, part of our DNA. So he talks about faith, chapter 6, the 4 sides of faith. And he says that faith isn't just about belief, it's a quality of the heart. It's about becoming somebody of faith. And he shares 4 aspects or 4 dimensions of faith. Faith as belief in Jesus, faith as confidence in Jesus, faith as trust in Jesus, and faith as allegiance to Jesus. And all 4 of those make up with this idea of faith. Faith is belief, but it's so much more than belief, right? Faith is also confidence and trust in Jesus. It's also faith means to pledge our allegiance to Jesus as the Lamb at the center of the throne room in heaven, right? He draws on some of the work by Matthew Bates here on that last part, faith is allegiance in Jesus, which I really enjoy Bates' work, deconstructing that word faith in the Greek pistis. And so anyway, faith is a virtue. Now, the second virtue is hope. Chapter 7 is all about hope. And he says a Christian hope is an embodied confidence that Jesus will make all things new, make all things right. It's this hope that Jesus is going to return and restore and renew everything, right? So we live in such a way that it reflects our hope. And so I share this quite often here at Sandy Hook. We live kingdom minded of what the future is today. So if a picture of heaven is no more death and no more tears and no more pain, then we live that way now by trying to reduce harm and wiping away the tears from people's eyes now, and try to restore and renew all those things now. So we live with, in light of, or leaning into the future kingdom. Right, the kingdom is now, but it's not yet. It's here, but it's not complete. And so we live with the knowledge of the way things should be, the way it ought to be. Shalom. And so we live in the overlap of ages. And then the last chapter in this section, chapter 8, is love. And is love is the most foundational of the virtues. It's not merely an emotion. It's deeply rooted in our character. And as we practice the virtue of love, we participate in the very life of God, reflecting his self-giving nature. Derek says that love is a choice. It's not a mere duty, it's a choice. It's something that we choose to do. We walk in the way of love, following Jesus' example, who gave us, who is the prototype human, who showed us what it means to be a human being. So we walk in his way. We follow in his steps by loving everyone always. And as we do that, it shapes our moral character. It shapes our moral decision making. And then in this chapter, Derek shares some habits of love, and he uses the analogy of his relationship with his wife to kind of think about what does love mean in that relationship, and it has to be intentional. So he talks about practicing habits of love with all our relationships, whether it's serving without being asked, whether it's seeking forgiveness when needed. There's some great examples of habits of love. And so faith, hope, and love, the three um, um, pillars of character, Christian character. And what would it be like for us today as a church to measure our success, so to speak, as a church by the character of the people that attend? I know we are becoming, and when we first enter the journey, we're a big mess. And as we go along, we should be less of a mess, right? But we should be developing a character of faith, hope, and love. And that should be the measurement. That should be the fruit of the tree of Sandy Hook United Methodist tree of church is faith, hope, and love. Or as Paul said in Galatians, the fruit of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, patience, etc. And so that's the type of people that we should be becoming, and the church helps shape and form through the life of the community of faith. Virtue. It's an interesting word. I first started reading about virtue when I read N.T. Wright's book, After You Believe, a dozen years ago. And I really loved the book. I actually just read it recently. So when Derek was talking about virtue, it kind of, it was fresh in my mind. But it's something we need to talk about more. And by the way, at Sandy Hook, our children's curriculum that we use for Sunday school is virtue driven, and it really focuses on developing the character of our children, which is, I think, super important. Anyway, babbled long enough. Centering Jesus, part 3, all about virtue. Next week, we will do the last section of the book and kind of complete this little journey through Derek Vreeland's book, Centering Jesus. And again, this is super important for us at Sandy Hook because as we wrote our mission statement, it has this phrase, we are Jesus-centered community. It's who we are. And so we need to understand what that means. Anyway, enough of talking. Hopefully you have a great week, everybody. Happy Wednesday, and I will see you soon. Grace and peace to you.